Predictions 2024 for the United States of America. All empires come to an end, and the American one is no exception. Robert Kiyosaki. The United States during 2023 has got it all wrong. They thought they would bring Russia's economy to its knees, that Ukraine would defeat Russia, and that American weapons would be invincible on the battlefield. And most importantly, that the dollar would live forever. In the end, the truth is that Western weapons have failed. Ukraine needs 20 years of hard work to become a state. Russia has not hurt economically, and the dollar is headed for marginalization. In 2024, things are pretty tough for America. The annual MC talks about a tendency to exercise power in at least a dictatorial manner. It is a year that can be described as unfortunate. Nevertheless, there will be a prevailing view, mainly within the USA, that America is the dominant power. The involvement of the NEAD axis gives us an interpretation that speaks of a phase of a new way of life and existence. The government will try to take political opponents out of the game while having no trace of flexibility and diplomacy. Finances will be constrained, and this will limit both travel and commercial activities. Annual RSC is pretty weird. I want to make it clear that in America now, only the rich will be right, but also groups of the LGBTQ community who will, however, from years of oppression, become aggressive, demanding more and more. So, this revolution is in line with George Orwell's words that he said, "You don't impose a dictatorship to guard the revolution. You make a revolution to impose a dictatorship." America will try to make new partnerships, but we must understand that it has lost much of the glamour of the past. With PLCU participation, we should expect a change in social conditions in relations, while it will try with some of its allies to transform a social structure. What is frightening is the involvement of the Mesa axis, which speaks of mourning, illness, and sadness. The planet of action, Mars, tells us of an increase in incidents of domestic violence, while quite recklessly, America will order an attack, and many of the boasts of the Air Force will become an object of ridicule, as there will be many accidents of aircraft with cutting-edge technology. The annual Neptune indicates bankruptcies in both companies and banks, while some important states will have major liquidity problems. Annual Neptune talks about relationships and contacts that are unreliable. The enduring mistake of the US is that as allies, they are unreliable. The United States will try to sugarcoat the economic situation, that everything is under control, but the signs in society will testify to the complete opposite. This is bound to bring enormous uncertainty. With the involvement of the Messiah axis, many people will become depressed, as their quality of life will become worse and worse. The whole situation and the orchestrated attempt to disorientate public opinion will make the American people sleep superpower and wake up with anxiety about tomorrow. Several bankruptcies to corporate giants. Mercury equals Uranus indicates an increase in revenue through the arts, movies, music, while trying to write its own version of history through propaganda. Amid all this, Cupido equals Jupiter and Zeus and talks of a partnership to initiate a legal process. How they will send Putin to the International Criminal Court, or how they will eat the confiscated, in my opinion, exaggerated valuables of Russia to balance the loss from the weapons sent to Ukraine. In the midst of all this, some countries will change sides and leave the sphere of influence of the US. Annual Hades sends a message that some things have to change immediately. Social breakdown, combined with ever-increasing unemployment, will bring an increase in divorce. The entanglement of the NEVU axis speaks to our inability to deal with both the challenges and the economic collapse, which by the year 2024 should be taken for granted. Of course, some significant revenues will be generated through products coming out of the subsoil, oil, gas, but it should be considered that the demand for economic reasons will be limited. The United States of America is now seriously exposed as its adversaries will want to bring war and the threat of war to its doorstep. It gets even worse since it cannot be ruled out that some cities will become like Fortaleza in Brazil or Los Cabos in Mexico. Atrocities, murders, and robberies. The vernal point Pluto involvement speaks of a general downfall. Kronos equals Saturn speaks of displacement and exile. There will be mass deportations. The United States will mourn a very important person, Isaji, a person who served as president in the past. The government will try to cut money to boost lower incomes, but it is extremely difficult to achieve its goal without consequences. The Neptune-Coronaus axis involvement speaks of government incompetence, revision, or even cancellation of ordinances, but is also a huge deception. Unfortunately, the vernal point Hades participation speaks for the umpteenth time of a major financial crisis. In addition, the north node of the moon indicates that the state will strengthen the weak and the have-nots, but this will be unlikely to happen. Its close relations with other states will be limited and often coercive. Annual Zeus speaks of decisions in the heat of the moment, and there will be recommendations that the agreements and the letter of the law be respected. It talks about increasing the manpower of the armed forces. He will recruit in this area. It is a year when it will be faced with fires which are caused by gas, and it will try to sharply increase the production of weapons and ammunition. Unfortunately, with the involvement of the Sun-Neptune axis, defeat and crash is inevitable. Pluto speaks of a fierce desire for power. The United States will demonstrate megalomania without being able to support it. This is a year when things will go from bad to worse. The involvement of the vernal point Saturn axis indicates the beginning of the end. Troubled stock trading, problems with the public treasury, problems from the actions of underworld individuals. Annual Moon talks about not meeting goals. It is the year that is written to go through a major ordeal. Neptune Cupido axis participation speaks of misery for the people. America should increase money and food for social welfare. Annual Volcanus speaks of dangerous gangs and settling scores, warlike activities and murderous acts. Oil and gas will give her economic breathing room. On a political level, there will be a shambles, as the government will be asked to hand over complete freedom to do whatever is possible to save what can finally be saved. Great care must be taken with hydroelectric plants, dams, and wind turbines, because there may be a hopeless disaster. Many media will diversify their stance. Annual Apollon suggests a more positive approach to the cryptocurrency space, although I have a feeling that the exchanges will cooperate in complete secrecy with the government and the IRS. In some areas there will be an uptick and there will be movement, but in the key areas of the economy, with Neptune Volcanus involvement, there will be inflation, destruction of prosperity, corruption, and major revelations. America will put a lot of emphasis on new technologies and classified programs. But Mars-Neptune involvement tells us about many individuals who are under the influence of false hopes, contamination and destruction of a large group of people. Annual Poseidon and marketing and propaganda at its best. America, with directed and paid articles and publications, will try to show another truth. The United States will behave as a defense witness for the missteps of some countries. Some diaries or secret documents may eventually burn it and expose it irreparably. In general, we will feel that it operates under underworld rules like Omerta, the Sicilian law of silence. Annual Uranus speaks of an attempt to disorientate public opinion. The participation of the Ascendant-Pluto axis brings out great changes in the views it will have if it fails to disengage from places where war conflicts are being waged. Then it will have very bad consequences at the economic and social level. With the involvement of the Kronos-Vulcanus axis, the state will try to make interventions to salvage what it can. With ascendant Pluto, we will have sudden, surprising changes in positions and intentions, sudden changes in one's view on an issue. Many financial scandals will tarnish America's image. Problems through a disease. The annual Saturn forecast is in itself disappointing. Soon Kronos involvement speaks of a loss of independence and an attempt on the one hand to cover up a case and on the other to answer to allies. There will be huge changes in working hours, but there will be an explosion of unemployment while losing prestigious people. The Immigration Service will do several deportations. A summary: 2024 is a pretty tough year, since now the dollar seems to be losing some of its luster, value and strength. Of course, on the other hand, the powerful American military technology seems to be nothing exceptional when you have a modern army against you. And finally, the advertising on the battlefields in Ukraine probably has a negative impact. Inside America, there will be looting,